I'm the bartender in evening service. I got a little bit.
On behalf of the family, thanks so much for coming this morning to pay fitting tribute to Lina. And if you had a chance to see the pictures in the lobby, there were some great black and whites put together of life back in the day when going out really did mean something. Nowadays, of course, we even order it to the house, but we're always eating out. Back in the day, going to the cave, and there must be one picture from the cave I thought I saw. You dressed up. It was a pretty huge occasion. And so we realize that as we come today to celebrate Lina's life, that we're celebrating a beautiful time and era that she lived in. Both herself and Dad and you guys, of course, as a family, for the Ernewins, right? I was going to go Ernewins, but it's Ernewins. You had a tremendous, generous, and active and capable mom. And so we come to celebrate the goodness that is found in her, that is found in grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that this continuance of goodness and generosity is found within family. And we gather possibly with smaller numbers than what we did pre-pandemic. But we gather nonetheless, and there's, of course, live streaming. We're filming this so that others can see it. Mom's life will not end in celebration today, but will continue. There'll be a record of what we did here. And to family that is coming to share a little bit of what it was like to be with mother or grandmother, thank you so much for what you're going to share with us. So many things that we can talk about in terms of praise. I just know that it's important from ancient days to this moment. In the Louvre is an exhibition. It's Egyptian from 4600 BCE. 6,621 years ago, they were doing this exact same thing. People were gathering. People were sharing. It was the ancient Greeks that said that you could not write a eulogy if you did not find zest or passion in the individual. And one of the things mentioned at the house, thanks Scott and Gail for representing Grant and family, you used the word feisty, right? She was a feisty woman. And I just went, okay, check mark. Greeks would have no trouble writing about Lina, And then you hear these stories that are, randomly shared stories of Mom, and I know that we just barely scratched the surface of her greatness. But I'm writing things down, and I'm just going, she had passion. She loved opera, VSO, volunteered, gave her time, Trout Lake community, And I'm just going, yes, in my head, yes, oh good, yes. Because there are times when you meet with a family and it's not that they don't have good things to say, it's just that it's really hard to find. They're searching through so many of the mundane to try and find the passion. But with you guys, it was just boom. Even the service folder, that's a great photo, right? I laughed. I said, there she is, just ready to take it by the reins and give her. it would be Robert Service. He would say, "Here lieth one who loved the Son and who lived with zest," right? "Whose work's now done. So reward, dear Lord, this weary one. May she now be blessed with peace and rest, nor awake again. Amen." That's Robert Service, right? He talks about zest for life. He talks about that passion that she would have had throughout. And really, it would take days. We'd have to order pizza and find a place to sleep and, to get through really all the good things. And it's amazing that we can take a beautiful life and kind of squash it into about 35, 40 minutes. But again, let's remind ourselves, it's one building block in that wall of greatness that was Lina's life. It's kind of the last piece that we put in. Or like the last spike, between the CN, between east and west, right? Where they finally pounded in that last peg and they stood up and they said, there it is. The connection between the beginning and the end, and that's what we're doing here today. Robbie Burns wrote a piece of poetry that I was thinking about after I left. Because again, when you talk feisty, you also talk opinionated. When you talk opinionated, you talk honesty. Now, it might not be honesty that you appreciate, and I'm not saying that Lina was always willing to, but there were times, I'm sure, with granddaughters where Granny would have pulled you aside and, just gave you some honest advice. Let's call it that. Robbie Burns wrote a piece of poetry at a funeral for a friend. They found it in his suit jacket after he had passed. Family went through every article of clothing because he was apt to, write poetry on the fly and then just stuff it. So they found this one, and they believe he wrote it at a funeral for a friend. And if he was here and if he knew of Lina's goodness, he would say, "An honest woman here lies at rest. As ere God with his image blessed." She was the friend of man, the friend of truth, the friend of those aged, but also the guide of youth. Few hearts like hers, with virtue warmed, few heads with knowledge so informed. If there's another world, then Lina lives in bliss. But if there is none, then family and friends know she made the best of this. And that's what we're about to hear. We're about to hear family speak a little bit of the best of Lina. What it was like. And again, think of her life from 24. She's 20 when the war is coming almost to a close. She had lived through the Depression. She'd seen as a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, would have seen flappers in that the dresses and motor vehicles becoming now prominent. She would have seen all this. Telephones back in her day were magic. And now everyone has a phone. We have to ask you to turn them off. I mean, all the things that she would have embraced. It's an amazing life. And to have had a grandmother that would be able to sit with you and just share a little bit of what it was like, that would have been amazing. May the grands, may the greats that had a chance to meet Lina, may you guys always remember what she shared. Because my generation, my children's generation, the next generation coming forward need to hear what it was like before something like a phone dominated our existence. I'm going to put my mask on. I'm going to go sit over there, if that's okay. And I'm going to sit and I'm going to bask. I use that word, bask, in the stories of greatness. I get to just kind of come in at the end, right? Gail, thanks so much for setting up the meeting, and I get to take notes, and I get to marvel and just ponder what it was like back then. And then to be able to sit and to listen to family just share lovingly what it was like. What an amazing privilege it is for us that gathered here today to be able to hear again of Lina's goodness. I believe Scott's coming first. And then family's going to just come forward. If you wish to take your mask off to be as clear as possible, that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't touch too much stuff, and we'll have to burn the pulpit after, right? You know, with COVID. But anyhow, Scott, come, and family, thanks so much for what you're going to share.
You're gonna get me crying. Easy. Jeez. My mother's mantra. Hard work. If you start something, finish it. Do not quit. Respect your elders. Family comes first, and never lie to me, and I'll always have your back. That's what she's all about. Now we'll do a light thing here. The wooden spoon incident. Yeah, buddy. Did you ever get that, Gil?
Probably.
I know me and Grant did. We're a little jerks when we're kids. We all are. And Mom had the wooden spoon. Boom, boom, boom. So I figured, okay, I'll beat her at her game. I hit it. No, I threw it away. Where's the wooden spoon? I don't know. Point at Grant, I don't know. A week later, she comes back with a bigger wooden spoon. Okay, can't beat you at that game. Move on. Mom and Dad never missed a hockey game, dance recital. Would be there to support you all the way. One time, she'd be behind the bench just screaming, rooting for us. I said, Mom, just don't embarrass me. And she never did. She respected me and never did. She got it. She figured it out. Birthday, Mother Day. Ruth and I used to take her to the casino. So we'd stick a $100 bill in the birthday Mother Day card and go up and pick her up. And I said, Mom, you got to open that card before we leave. Why? And just do it. $100. And then she'd sneak off to the bedroom, and I followed her. And you're not taking that to the casino, are you? No. She'd play the penny machines, eh? I won. What'd you win? A nickel. Mom, you got to pounce it. Bring the $100. Jeez. But moving on, she was right, look out. If she was 50-50 on something, she'd back off, back down a little bit, but she would never take no shit, which was a great lesson for all of us. In hard times, talked to her and knew it'd be, everything would work out. Just her calm demeanor, you knew it would be okay. Her great sense of humor, her compassion for fellow human beings, organizing lunches, card games, keeping people together. If you're in her circle, it was never a dull moment. I remember the wonderful years at Point Roberts, poker games, happy hour, fish fries, golf tournaments, crabbing at Boundary Bay. Memories I'll never forget. I have so much respect for Mom and Dad's generation, Uncle Al, Annie Mark, Uncle George, Annie Ollie, Annie Dolly, Uncle Bill, Uncle Stan, Uncle Betty, Uncle Johnny, Stan, Elaine, Claire, Uncle Joe, Annie Loretta, Annie Myrtle. She's a classic. I could go on about that one, but anyway. Andy Helen, Uncle Wolf, Adeline, Uncle Ralph, Grandma Nicholson, Grandma Ernewin, and then don't forget Fred and Zelma, Wally and Donna. I hope I didn't miss anybody, because if you did, she'll tell me on the other side. Family and friends, that's how they shape our lives. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gail, her daughter, in case you don't know who I am. So this is a story of a woman who embraced life. I'm sure someone has a memory of or story they can talk about my mother. First and foremost, she was compassionate, caring, loving, and warm-hearted. People were attracted to my mother. People who were lonely and needed someone to listen to their story. Without knowing it, my mother was a healer. And she went through her life helping others daily in any way she could. Her gift was her inner beauty, which others saw and embraced. She told me a story about a sad bus driver that she chatted with one day. As she was leaving the bus, he said to her, "Thanks for the talk. I feel much better now." Always there for others and spreading the love. As children, my brothers and I were lucky because we had a great green space across the street where the old interurban rail line used to be. We would spend hours in the summer imagining and exploring. The downside was downside for my mom is that we would come home really dirty. So she'd say, okay, we come in through the basement door, take off all our dirty clothes, and clean ourselves up before going upstairs. Also, I remember how she was always so appreciative of the lovely flowers, or should I say weeds, that I would bring back from our trips to Imagination Land. Or thanking me for the mud pies that I would make. And after a rainfall, when the muddy lane was prime place for building dams and making mud pies. Secondly, my mother was funny, honest, and fair. I remember a specific incident when I was with my mother. Mom enjoyed a good bargain. So we went to the bake as she wanted to get the sale price on an item she purchased a few days before. While she was at the cash register, I was off looking at some clothing. And I heard her say to the sales associate, "That's my daughter over there. She's embarrassed. So she's standing over there." I smiled and gestured. That was my mom. She was also very honest and fair, particularly with her children. If you did something she didn't like, she would tell you in no uncertain terms. It was food for thought, and we learned many lessons from her in our lives. The lessons I learned were particularly profound in my adolescence. As many of you know, I was difficult in my teen years. And she would get very frustrated with me. But even though there were times when she and I did not get along, I always knew she was there for me if I needed her. As I grew older, my respect for her grew. And in my 20s, I realized that she actually was pretty smart. I apologized for my prior behavior and antics that I pulled off in my teen years. And it wasn't until my 30s that I really connected and grew closer. Often I would sit with Mom in her family home, and we would turn on the music from the 1940s and 50s, and we would dance in the den of the living room. We would also sing old show tunes together, as she had a lovely voice. As you can see, we enjoyed each other's company and had made wonderful memories together. We spent time together going to the VSO Pop series at the Orpheum Theater and had season tickets to the ballet for many years. She and I had similar interests, and we shared our love for the performing arts. As you can tell, my mother was a force of nature. And as I was thinking about what I was going to say today, I began to think about what a person leaves behind when they pass. As her daughter, I have specific views on life and how I see a person's wealth. I do not measure wealth by the balance in a person's bank account. Wealth is measured by the people that you have touched, the kindness you have given to others, and the love that others feel for you. She has left her body, but is still in our hearts and minds. She has touched everyone and given them joy, love, and hope. As I see it, my mother was one of the wealthiest people I have ever met.
So I'm Kelly. I'm Lina's eldest granddaughter. Nana, also known to our family as Great Nana Ernewin, was one of a kind. Nana was the elder, matriarch, leader, and glue that bonded our family together and lifted us up and allowed us to spread our wings. Nana was a strong yet gentle leader. She was strong like a rock and yet gentle as a feather. She taught us many life lessons during her lifetime. She guided us by living an authentic life and sharing her memories and experiences with us. Nana lived a life that valued people and relationships over things. She was generous with her time and love. Nan was social and loved to have family and friends over at her house for food and drinks. Her house on Vanessa Ave was home to many open houses and family get-togethers over the years. I can still see her standing in the doorway of the house greeting people with open arms and a big grin. She was warm and welcoming to everyone. Nana was a glass half full kind of person. She had a very positive mindset and always saw the brighter side of things. She would even apologize if she complained about something. She was grateful for the simple things in life, like going for a walk around Trout Lake, tending to her beautiful flower and vegetable garden, playing cards with friends, knitting dishcloths, or watching an oldie but goodie show on television. Nan loved routines and was a very organized person. She had a daily schedule that I learned about when I lived with her for a year while attending teaching college from 2002 to 2003. She would get up every morning and make coffee and breakfast for both of us. Then she would listen to music on the radio and walk around the house wearing a velvet housecoat. Making the beds, dusting with her bright feather duster, and completing other household chores that needed to be done for the day. While I was at school, she would wash my clothes in Ivory Snow detergent and hang them outside to dry on the clothesline. The table was always set and dinner would be ready by 5 o'clock. At nighttime, Nana and I would gather in her TV room near the front of her house and look at pictures, watch shows together, and talk about her childhood and adult memories. She loved to ask me about what I was learning at university. We had so many great conversations. I am very thankful for the time we spent together. She was a great listener and an even better advice giver. You could always count on her to be there for you. Nana, you have been and will continue to be our elder and mentor. I think about you often and feel your spirit close to me all the time. You continue to guide me and lift me up. You continue to be the wind beneath our wings. We will continue to honor you by continuing to talk about you, share your stories, and live a life that honors all that you have taught us.
I'm gonna go and get some more. think I'm okay. I think I'm okay. Hello, everyone. For those who don't know who I am Lina's youngest granddaughter, Brooke. Just want to thank you all for being here and coming together with us as we celebrate the beautiful life of our Nan. I am honored to share some of my thoughts on the remarkable life that she lived. Please bear with me if I fumble over my words. This little beauty, she meant a lot to us. Over the past few months, I have been reminiscing and collecting memories on this woman's life. This actually is the 5th dedication that I've written, so Nan, I hope I actually got it this time. Lina was a vivacious force that could light up a room wherever she went. She had a charming way about her. Her beautiful snow-white hair and her sparkly blue eyes, and of course we can't forget the smart little outfits, like that one right there, that she would put together for herself. She was one classy babe, and I loved telling her that, even though she never liked to hear a compliment, or she always had a hard time with taking a compliment. She was not only beautiful on the outside, but she was golden on the inside. Lina was a humble woman with a generous heart. She had this natural, warm, inviting way about her. People were drawn to her. There was always room at her table, no matter who you were. Lina was a social butterfly. She lived for connection. It was one of her lifelines. Her family was everything to her, and her friends were also considered family in her books. She valued her relationships and treasured the ones she loved dearly. Looking through her photos, I was amazed at the parties that she put on. Coming together mattered the most to her. If there was a reason to celebrate or put on a do, she would jump on it. Nan made friends wherever she went. I always looked forward to hearing about her adventures and stories about random people that she would meet up on her walks. She would stay extra long at the bus stop just to connect with someone. Or she would stay on the bus for one more round trip just to talk to the driver. And I swear, when I'm hearing these stories, we didn't talk about what we talked about. So it's really interesting that Auntie Gail, you brought that up. Her daily trips to the local IGA were to check in and say hi to all of her friends that worked there. It didn't matter who you were or how old you were. She enjoyed interacting with people and hearing their stories. My Nana was one of my greatest teachers. She was the rock of our family, just a solid human being who was always there to listen without judgment. Her words of wisdom live within me every day. I can still hear her voice of reason. She was genuine and meant everything, like she meant what she said. Even if I didn't want to hear the truths at the time, she had a way of getting through to me. There's that connection thing again. It was all about connection. She just knew me on a deeper level. She could read me like a book. I think she could read all of us like a book. She had that gift. Lina lived with integrity, always looking out for others' needs. I vividly remember to this day of her asking me to offer my seat to this elderly woman who had walked onto the Sky train. The train was full, and Lina was the first one to advocate for this elder. I was 7 years old, and here she was teaching me the importance to respect and to look out for others in need. It's hard to find the words to describe what it was like having her as our Nana. She was our biggest cheerleader. She would take multiple buses and walk in the March rain to come and watch us at our dance competitions. Never mind her walking home late at night from the Nanaimo SkyTrain station by herself after, a long day out watching us at New Westminster dancing at an honors performance. She would walk home from the SkyTrain station, and I used to say to her, Nan, you know, you should take a cab at least from the SkyTrain station, or bring some mace to protect yourself. And her response would always be, what for? I'll take any SOB down if they try me. I'll let them have it. And you know what? It's true. She used to say that, and that was her fiery side, and I loved that about her. She just, bring it on. I am grateful for the diverse opportunities that she brought into our lives. The ballets, the musicals, our Disneyland trip, the plays, the VSO, trips on the sea bus to Lonsdale Quay, the cruises down the Fraser River out to Fort Langley, trips down to Point Roberts. The memories are endless. She taught us about the importance of taking time out of everyday life to enjoy the finer things. Variety and spice, that's what she shared with us. It was time well spent with Nan. The best thing of all was being able to share Ashley and Taylor with her. It was an absolute gift to watch her with them. Her loving, spunky spirit blessed them till the very end. She had this youthful attitude about her. She connected on their level. She was always asking them about what was going on at school or in their extracurricular activities. What can I say? She was a precious gem, and I am so thankful they will remember her. There is 97 years of this woman's flavorful life to cover, and I could seriously go on for days. But I will say this. It is very rare nowadays to meet someone as golden as she was. She was a force. She was magical in her own ways. As I look at her life, her cup was evenly balanced and filled to perfection. She made it that way. She put her best foot forward every day and lived each day to its fullest. Her footprint is forever engraved in our hearts. And I hope all of you leave here today with your cups full. I think if Lina were here, which I know she's probably here somewhere, but if she was standing here and she could speak, she would want you to go out there and live each day to your best ability. She would want you to say hello to that random person on the street because you never know what they are going through. Lina would say, lend a helping hand when you can. Speak your truths in kindness. Root for the underdog and never, ever give up. She would say, live until you fly. So Nan, I know you're here waiting for Bet to belt out your song. It's coming. Are you guys ready for it? I just want you to know that your legacy will carry on. And I promise you, these are happy tears, because I'm happy for you. You always said that. You wanted us to be happy for you. Just thank you for being golden and staying true. We are all better people because of you. So I love you dearly. That's that.
thanks so much for sharing what you did with us. I mean, the lessons she would have taught from beginning to end, the joy, Brooke, that you were sharing of your grandmother with your children. The Irish would say, "Blessed is this woman, for she was able to be with her children's children's children." And Scott, the lesson learned, don't hide the spoon. There are bigger ones out there. Right? Just leave good enough alone. What I really liked about when you shared those, what your mom, one of your mom's sayings, "Do not lie to me, and I'll always have your back." What a great lesson to know. For Gail, Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, when I was 14, my dad was the stupidest man I knew. And then Mark Twain writes, "It's amazing how much the old man learned in just 7 years." Right? Yeah, he matured and he realized that his dad wasn't so dumb. Right? Those are lessons that we learn. And it takes a little bit of time for us to get them. And there's the patience. Right? Waiting for that day. And Kelly, for you being the eldest, the first one through the loop, you were the one that softened the edges, right? But a velvet robe and a feather duster and breakfast, and then a chance to share what you learned, right? What a beautiful year. Difficult probably, right? You had to kind of fit into that mold, and these are just 4 people that knew her. The reason why we have a reception, and it's so nice to be able to have a reception again, is that it gives all of you a chance just to share back with family what you've experienced today, but what you also experienced along the way. For Lina was so many things to so many different people. And the Ernewin family has this great treasure that they can tip the box every once in a while and just show what's inside. And so the reception is all of us just tipping our treasure box and showing what lies in there. So thank you for giving me the privilege of just sitting and listening, for the privilege of being with you guys for, about an hour right at the house and just listening. And then to be able to see on the poster board here and in the lobby these moments captured on film in which Lina was at her best. I'll sum up with just this and then we'll go to our reception. It was Debbie Burton Peddle. She writes, "Mom, as we look back over time, we find ourselves wondering, did we remember to thank you enough for all that you did for us? For the times you were by our sides to help and support us, celebrate our successes, understand our problems, even accept our defeats, or for teaching us by your example the value of hard work, good judgment, courage, and integrity. We wonder if we ever thanked you enough for the sacrifices you made to let us have the very best. And for the simple things like laughter, smiles, times that we shared. If we have forgotten to show our gratitude enough for all the things you did, today as we gather, we thank you now. And we hope you knew all along how much you meant to us." She knew how much you loved her. And you knew how much you loved Lina. To all of us today then, as we transition to the reception, as stories will be shared, as simple food and drink is also fellowship, right? Breaking bread together. The family thanks you for being here. To the Burkeview staff, to Barb in the back, to the individual taping this for us today, thank you as well for being a part of today's service. Blessings to each and every one of you. Continue to be safe, and eventually we'll make it through. To all of you, have a great day. Well done.